Welcome to I Drink Your Podcast, where we drink and talk about movies from 2007.
Can't stop what's coming.
So, cool beans?
Cool beans.
Mixing his character and his real name. Okay.
We have fun.
How about a suicide pact?
Where you go?
What are you trying to be, an Irish R&B singer?
Oh, it's because he's 60 years old. 60 years old. The alcohol's working.
We need water.
I drink your podcast. I drink it up.
Welcome, everybody, to an episode of I Drink Your Podcast, the movie podcast about 2007 movies. Before we get started, I just want to go ahead and remind you guys, all of your reviews and your ratings help us grow. And if you guys want to share us on social media, we will be sure to share you right back, follow you back, all that stuff. Just help us grow. Share us with somebody that likes movies. And we appreciate all of that help. But joining me this week is Ben, Emily, and Wes. And before we get started, let me tell you what I am drinking for this episode. I have some crushed ice and 23 flavors of Dr. Pepper and some Kentucky bourbon whiskey. Bing, boom, pulling and drinking. What are you guys drinking?
Wait, how is that related to our movie?
Freedom. Woo. Capitalism. Woo.
Well, mine's actually themed pretty similar in that I'm choosing to live free by drinking Mountain Dew, and I'm choosing to die hard by also having Yag.
Oh.
Yeah. Nice.
So it's a Jagger Dew, which actually was originated in a college in New York. So that's also how it's tied in.
Is that really its name, Jagger Dew?
A Jagger Dew. Or a Mountain Bomb. I prefer Jagger Dew.
I prefer Jagger Dew as well.
You don't like the mountain bombs? You know, it helps with the explosions of this movie. No?
Live Moss, Ben. Kudos to you.
Similar to Matt, I'm drinking a drink. I already forgot what it is. It's just smoked maple bourbon.
I was going to say, is it in your mouth? Because you forgot
with some
what it
ice.
Was.
It's actually dangerous.
Look at that fancy fucking glass.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Yeah, what's the name of that glass?
Stormbringer.
Oh, okay.
Good one.
Okay.
No, it's actually really good. It's super sweet, so it's pretty dangerous to drink. And it's related to this movie because there is a lot of smoke.
Oh.
Yum.
So in the beginning of the movie, Justin Long's character is hacking and drinking Red Bull and cranberry juice. I hate Red Bull, but I am doing a vodka cranberry with a enhanced sparkling water that has some energy drink stuff in it. So
fancy.
I know, right?
Ooh,
Thanks, Corbin.
Hacking right into our hearts and minds.
Getting that algorithm going.
This week we watched Live Free or Die Hard. So our hook for this week is going to be, hey, have you guys ever been in the wrong place at the wrong time, like our protagonist, John McClane?
I definitely have. As I know, Wesley and Matt, we were friends at this time. I got into a pretty serious car accident when I was 22. I got hit head on by a drunk driver. And, you kind of run through scenarios where it's like, how could this have been avoided? And you think like, man, if I had hit a red light instead of a green light, or if I didn't have to drive my buddy home, like I would have avoided it completely. But instead, it just happens, and life was changed because of it.
Right. So the way life's changed for you was you were on crutches for like a year, right?
I mean, it was like 3 months. It wasn't a year.
Okay.
I broke my ankle and severed some tendons in my hand. And it was opposite ankle hand, so I couldn't really use crutches, actually. So, Matt, you'll remember, because we were hanging out a lot at this time, Mike would pick me up in his little Fiero, and it was a 2-seater, and I sat in there with my busted ankle and torn up hand, and you sat in the trunk.
Road trunk, baby.
So yeah, I had to hop around basically for 3 months, and then once I was done, one of my calves was massive, and the other one had like shriveled up to nothing. And my mom constantly tells me this joke that I told to the doctor, because once they cut off my cast, I turned to the doctor and I said, just cut the leg off, because the calf was so shriveled and gross.
Yeah,
I'm glad
that's
they
pretty
didn't go with that.
Yeah, right.
Oh. That's so serious too. Like mine is not serious. I have had kind of a nice life where I feel like I've been in the right place at the right time. Good things have happened to me. Or if bad things happen to me, it's because of my fucking fault. So for me, the one that I was going to tell is when I was drunk, underage, and I filled out my absentee ballot in front of my mom while drunk. She showed up way earlier than I expected her to show up. And she dropped off my absentee ballot at college, and I was so drunk. I remember filling in the little bubbles and just laughing about it.
I love you getting drunk and voting. That's so sick.
As you voted for Nader, right?
Freedom!
So she showed up days early, or you were just planning on being hammered when she got there?
No, just a couple hours early, and I wasn't like hammered. I could still function. I was definitely very tipsy.
Jeez Louise. That's funny.
Yep. She knew. I thought I was passing it off. She knew.
Well, since everybody knows I'm a wizard, I am never late, nor am I early. I arrive precisely when I mean to. So I've actually I couldn't think of any time I've been in the wrong place or wrong time other than maybe America in the first half of 2020.
Sure.
Matt, what about you?
Possibly the second half even. So my wrong place, wrong time story starts in 2006, Air Force recruiting office. I stepped foot into a place and signed away the next 4 years of my life. I guess it turned out okay. I went to college and everything, but you know, that's the one I can think of. There's always positives and negatives with everything, you know. 4 years gone. I was serving in the military away. But, you know, I got to go to school for free, you know, just like you got like 1,000 DVDs, Ben, when you got that.
I mean, I got a lot more than that.
you used your drunk driving settlement to purchase a lot of DVDs.
To purchase a lot.
I remember that. I remember the day the guy came to set up the sound system. I think it was super early in the morning and Ben didn't tell us and we were all living in the same apartment and they ran through like a sound effects demo with like the subwoofer on like full volume. And I'm pretty sure the one I woke up to is the helicopters where they show off the surround sound. So it sounds like helicopters are just sweeping across the apartment and just booming.
That's hilarious.
Good thing there are a lot of helicopters in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah. I like how they also like, doesn't it sound real? Like we're all like supposed to know what helicopters surrounding us sounds like.
It sounds like what I expected to.
We watched Live Free or Die Hard. And then the first half of this podcast, we're going to be discussing and reviewing that movie. And then in the second half, we're going to be doing our Battle of Twits tournament. This is the second round between Emily and I, and it will be judged by Mr. Ben. So
Mr. Ben.
Mr. Ben. So this movie was directed by Len Wiseman, and it features Bruce Willis, Justin Long, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and Timothy Olyphant. Almost like elephant.
It always makes me think of the Two Towers. Oh, it's an Oliphant, Mr. Frodo.
Yeah. Oliphant. So
that's two Lord of the Rings references already in this episode.
Heck yeah. Let's keep going. How many can we fit in?
We'll try. We'll keep a count for. So had you guys seen this movie before? I mean, I vaguely have seen it, but I don't remember where and when. I just remember the helicopter getting crashed into by a car.
Yeah, I don't have a where and when either. All of these mid-2000 action movies kind of blur together for me. This was the first Die Hard movie I had seen. I didn't see Die Hard for the first time until like 2 years ago.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
That's like the same time I watched Die Hard for the first time.
Yeah, my brother said it was a Christmas movie, so we watched it on Christmas.
Oh my gosh, that was probably the same Christmas that we watched it.
I think I might have been there.
I think you were.
It's just the tradition now. But I know I've watched Die Hard on Christmas with your family.
Then yeah, that was the first time I'd seen it.
Right. And a little tidbit about this movie. This is not a Christmas movie. The first two Die Hards are Christmas movies.
No, they're not.
They're set on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
They're set on Christmas Eve.
So that doesn't make them Christmas movies. I'm going to die on this hill. No.
You're going to die hard on this hill. That's right.
The internet group think that those are Christmas movies. Like, I don't agree with that. Just because they're set on Christmas doesn't make them Christmas movies.
I was reading somewhere in the realm of like Christmas is set in the first Die Hard script, or it's written at least 14 or 15 times, like more than gun and explosion. But it's a lot less than terrorists
themselves.
and blood and yeah, I think it's a Christmas movie, but the second two are definitely not. But that's obviously up for dispute if it's a Christmas movie.
I've never seen the fourth one. I've actually only seen Die Hard, the first one. And
wow.
So, yeah, so this was interesting to experience for the first time, especially I loved the original Die Hard. Mm-hmm. I absolutely loved everything about it. And then watching this one, I'll let you know when we get to the end what I think.
Are you going to go back and fill in the gap?
I don't know.
You should watch Die Hard with a Vengeance.
I've heard. Is that the third one?
Yeah,
that's the third one.
2 is good too.
That's Hans Gruber's brother or something.
Die Hard 2 is not good.
Yeah, right.
Well, don't spoil the ending of the movie, Emily.
I had to read a lot and learn a lot about Die Hard. Okay.
Die Hard 2. It has a really great scene where he stabs a dude in the eye with an icicle. That does not happen in regular movies. Come on.
And he can't be convicted because the icicle will melt.
Yeah, there goes the murder weapon. Exactly. I love all the Die Hards.
I thought I had remembered that I had watched this movie before, but after starting to watch it, I was totally expecting Justin Long to be Bruce Willis's son. So I'm pretty sure I haven't seen it before. I know I have seen Die Hard with a Vengeance a lot. It used to be on TV all the time, and I love that movie. Samuel L. Jackson in that movie is incredible.
Pretty good bad guy, too. You know, talking in rhyme and rhythm. All right. So let's talk about this Die Hard, okay? After a brief computer outage at the FBI, John McClane, played by Bruce Willis, a normal New York City cop/detective, is sent to pick out a local hacker, Matthew Farrell, played by Justin Long, to be questioned in Washington, D.C. McClane saves Farrell's life from hacker assassins led by Thomas Gabriel, played by Timothy Olyphant, and his love interest hacker assassin lady friend, Mai Lin, played by Maggie Q. Gabriel starts to take control of the United States infrastructure with, as Farrell recognizes, a fire sale. McClane and Farrell are driven to FBI headquarters, but Mai Lin poses as a dispatcher and reroutes the convoy into the path of an assault helicopter. McClane fends off the attackers and destroys the helicopter.
Destroys the helicopter is that doesn't give that scene justice.
I mean, I figured that we would talk about it, Wesley. Yeah. You want to paint us a picture?
I mean, he is driving in a dark tunnel in a shot up police car pretty fast, and on the fly calculates the trajectory of the angle that the toll booth would smash at to launch the car, the exact direction of the helicopter that's flying midair, and somehow the guy just jumps out and doesn't die. That was the part that bothered me.
Oh, wow.
That's definitely the most famous scene from this movie. Like that's the money shot that they sold this movie on, was that car flying into the helicopter.
Was it real?
Yes, it was. They actually did it. This entire movie tried its best to do practical effects wherever it could, which I really appreciate, because when it gets really bogged down with CGI, especially at this time when CGI wasn't that great, you can kind of tell that they kind of phoned it in. But even like that car tumbling in the tunnel and crashing into the two cars as they were standing there, they actually tumbled that car into those two cars, but then they just composited the two people into the scene.
It reminded me a lot of Fast and Furious stunts, like that scene specifically with all the cars.
So Farrell recognizes what a fire sale is. Can we go over exactly what that actually is?
Yeah. So a fire sale, stage one of it is that the hackers will shut down all of the transportation systems, such as traffic lights, railroads, subway systems, airports, etc. Stage two then is to disable the financial systems, including Wall Street banks and all financial records. And then stage three is turning off the public utility systems like electricity, gas lines, telecoms, satellites.
Right. Oh, it's like what they did in the movie.
Right. With the tagline of the fire sale being "Everything must go." And then that's how they tie it all together. Because you're like, fire sale? What the fuck are you okay.
It's okay. I think Ben texted me a gif of Tobias Funke going, "They're having a fire sale."
Oh, yes. so good.
I really liked how they evacuated the government. Who did they evacuate?
Everything.
The CIA.
The anthrax. They did all government buildings.
Yeah. The words anthrax alarm really threw me off, and I had to do some research.
Is that a thing?
Exactly.
It was.
Is that a thing?
It was. Yes.
Yeah, like that kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, that was a post 9/11 thing where people were really afraid of being like chemically attacked, and there were like fake issues where people would mail in anthrax to huge buildings, and they would have to evacuate the entire thing. So just like there's active shooter drills now in schools, there were anthrax drills and alarms in corporate and government buildings at the time.
And they don't do that anymore?
We don't really hear much about anthrax anymore, so I'm sure they could sound the alarm and they would know what to do, but
less than 100 people a year die currently from anthrax.
Excellent fact, Wesley.
Honest numbers came today. I didn't even hear about the colors yet in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was blue and black, and then some red as John McClane got shot. That's about it. There's your color report.
No, you're actually, I agree, Wesley. Like the colors in this movie were pretty boring. Yeah, I don't know if it was just the way that it was shot, but especially that gun scene in Farrell's apartment. That scene was super boring to me, and I think it's mostly because I don't like gun action scenes, especially when I know that it's not like John McClane's going to get shot in the first act. So there's no stakes to it. Oh.
I just want to lead off with that point. So they're in his apartment, and they're killing off all the hackers that helped them create this fire sale with a very convoluted, they hit the delete key on their computer and their C4 attached to the computer.
Do you want to talk about that, Matt? Because I definitely want to talk about that.
I do, because it kind of leads me into this area where it's like the premise of this movie is that computers are magic. Everything is controlled by computers, but let's dive into like how they decided they wanted to kill these hackers first.
Right. So the fact that they had some sort of virus in their computers where if they pressed the delete key, it blew up. First off, that's so stupid. It's so stupid.
Well, it wasn't like a virus. It looked like they actually had C4 strapped to the back with like
a
switch. Like they showed the light transitioning. How did they get the bomb in there?
Right.
They got there. They put the C4 in the computer, and then they gave him a virus as well. Both of those things happened when they could probably just remote detonate it or shoot him with the gun. Or
they show up at this house with a van full of 5 guys anyway, just to watch the explosion. Like
exactly.
Right. How stupid is that? Okay, so the hacking in this movie, that's like the whole premise. And I like how you said, Matt, that computers are magic, because at this point, audiences were smart enough to know that computers really weren't supposed to work this way, but maybe they weren't. I don't know. I think looking back on it now for knowledge, I just thought it was super dumb. But I was looking at one of the writers and producers of Mr. Robot, or Adana, and what they were saying about how Hollywood and just TV and film just suck when it comes to hacking. Like, see the nerdy hacker sitting in a dark room and like typing super fast, and the faster you type, the better it goes. Or whatever.
Yeah. He's in a van and he needs 2 more seconds,
Right. Just give me 2 more seconds. So in this article that I was reading, they talked about how a lot of things that they get away with in movies are like gimmicks and flashy graphics. And I felt that this movie kind of stayed away from that, but they still had some kind of ridiculous graphics. Like when Timothy Oliphant's character, Gabriel, was getting rid of his bank account and getting rid of his 401k. There was like this big 401k on the top. Like,
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Right.
And they had these like slider effects that showed, the electricity is going down. And, that's not how it works. They didn't show any real coding, which is fundamental in what they were doing. And then also the fact that they, as Ben, you said, they tried not to use a lot of green screen CGI stuff. In this movie, they didn't do practical effects for coding. They like put the pictures and images on later in post-production.
What?
Wow, man, they really tricked you, huh?
Jeez.
Do you feel mad?
I'm a little mad, yeah.
I mean,
It changes my review of this movie.
I was really surprised that the government was so ineffective to predict something like this and prevent this. That was kind of a huge thing for me that bothered me. And yes, they explained later that Gabriel was like a part of the government at some point and came up with a bunch of the things. I don't know. That just seemed really dumb to me.
Probably should be even more reason to have a plan for the guy who invented all this stuff and helped come up with it and warned us about it. Like, I don't know, maybe hire somebody else who can think of a way to stop it.
Yeah, or keep a file on that guy. Just, make sure he's not up to some weird fucking operation where he has a command center and like he's recruiting all these geek techs and stuff. I don't know. It's like the entire feasibility of this bad guy and everything he's putting together doesn't work. But I think the over-the-top action kind of rules out for me. So I'm like much more forgiving because I think John McClane hits one of the bad guys with his car and like he just flies off and hits a dumpster and he just gets off and dusts himself off. I'm like, oh, it's one of those kind of movies. And
Right.
that bad guy getting hit by a car just escalates because, I mean, it happens again and again.
Well, right after that, there's a guy on a chain link fence hanging on the car and catches the corner of a dumpster and flings the guy. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah, definitely. So after the car flies into the helicopter, Gabriel begins stage 3 of the fire sale and starts to shut down networks and launches an attack on a power grid in West Virginia. Farrell guesses this correctly, and with McClane stops Lynn and her team from taking over, but also kills everyone, enraging Gabriel, who sends natural gas to blow them up. What the fuck? McClane begs for Farrell's help, so they take a helicopter to the Warlock's Kevin Smith's house. A fellow hacker, Warlock runs a trace route and identifies Gabriel's location, but Gabriel taps into their connection and reveals he has located and kidnapped John McClane's estranged daughter, Lucy.
I was really bothered with the natural gas just suddenly, convening on to this building and then just blowing up, and somehow they survived. Like, obviously John McClane is a fighter and can get himself out of really sticky situations if he runs fast enough away from it. But like, what the actual fuck was this?
It takes a complete misunderstanding of the way gas flows in order to believe that could happen.
I believed it.
Because the yeah, that makes sense. The entire natural gas system works on a pressure gradient where basically the central hub has like 6,000 PSI. And then as it goes towards the outer pipes and branches of the system, it starts to dissipate down to the PSI that comes out of like your oven or your stove.
You guys didn't see it, but Ben pushed his glasses up into his bridge of his nose as he said all that. And I think that this natural gas scene really played into the computers are magic part of this, where they're like, hey, with a computer, we can do anything. We can route all traffic facing each other so they go into each other, and we'll turn off all of the lights. And, we're going to route all this gas into this one building, and that's going to blow up that building. So,
but why did it even start on fire? Like,
well, it'd be like if there's a gas leak in your house, I think.
Gas leaks don't just start on fire. Like, there has to be something that ignites them.
Right. There has to be a spark.
Or like an appliance that's left on. Like maybe
there's no appliances in the gas lines.
In the building, they're routing all the natural gas into their. Why am I defending this?
I was just about to ask you that. Why are you defending this?
I'm just like, duh. Like, what do you mean? Like, they left on a refrigerator in the building they were in.
Forgiving all of that, the fact that they blew up the building after they had killed everyone and stopped them from shutting it down, it still completed the task of shutting it down. So their whole point and the whole reason they knew they were there is because Justin Long's character figures out that, well, the next part of the plan is they have to do something that they can't do digitally. And to do that, they would be shutting down all the power. But then they, through computers, blow up the building and complete the task anyway. I don't know, just gripes. I have gripes. But it was still good. Like, I didn't mind it.
I mean, I loved my Lynn's character played by Maggie Q. I really loved her, and I was really fucking pissed when she just fell down the elevator and died.
She didn't just die. She got ran into a cement wall with a car and survived and started fighting again.
which was a ridiculous scene because they should have showed more of her talents. Like Maggie Q was trained by Jackie Chan. And so I was really disappointed that she died. And yeah, she showed off a little bit of her martial arts abilities, but it was like, why did she die? Oh, just because Timothy Olyphant was in love with her. And so that's like the driving force to kidnap his daughter, or John McClane's daughter.
I hate that trope too. I talk about tropes that I hate all the time, but that trope where the evil genius has a high up in his ranks female that he is also lovers with, like, why couldn't they just be like really close colleagues that now he's mad that McClane killed her? Like, it doesn't always have to be a romance, and all they did was share a kiss.
But all of the women in this movie are just used as props to show why the male characters are driven to do what they do.
Yep. And she really could have been just a colleague, like a little terrorist colleague. But then, like, you know, Timothy Olyphant just gives her a big, wet, open mouth kiss. And we're just like, okay.
I really like that we don't call him Gabriel. Like, we call him Timothy Olyphant.
The only character name I'm using is John McClane. Everybody else is just the actor or actress.
Yep.
Right.
Why is Kevin Smith in this movie?
Why is Kevin Smith in any movie?
That's why the fuck not. I love Kevin Smith.
Yeah, but like this movie, like, is he friends with Bruce Willis? How did this come about? Like, you don't ever see him usually in movies that aren't his.
Right. The only connection I can make is that Justin Long's character loved action figures, and Kevin Smith loves action figures in real life. So you kind of just assume they would be friends. And I don't know. I kind of made that connection in the movie, but
there's a wide world of people that could play this role. And I just don't think that Kevin Smith is that good of an actor, which is why he only appears in his own movies.
Hot take.
I'm going to have a hot take here. I was impressed with the terrorism.
Wow.
That they chose to do. I thought it was really creative, using the presidential footage as a threat to the nation, like splicing it together to form the threat that they have, and then fake exploding the Capitol. I was really impressed by the creativity in that.
Can you imagine how easy that spliced footage would be now? It could just be a Trump speech.
We talked about having one of the questions be cut together.
I was thinking about
your
that
own
too.
Little clips of president stuff, and you can only use Trump quotes.
Yeah,
was the one I had.
Barack wasn't president either.
Right.
Yeah. So,
well, I was talking about how this was all the Bush era. You know, we're talking about 2007. This is all Bush era. And so it was definitely weird to see older presidents and not see Barack Obama at all. It was very strange to think about how long ago that was.
This movie definitely has that post 9/11 patriotism feel to it that a lot of these mid-2000 action movies have. As we're looking ahead to the next few years, like, we're very much a divided nation right now. What are action movies going to look like? Because action movies typically reflect the political landscape of the times. What are action movies going to look like in the future?
And police.
They're going to have a movie someday with a figurehead Trump, like making fun of Trump as president. You know what was that movie that we watched? Transformers, right? And they had the feet crossed of the president. And you're like, oh, that was obviously George Bush, even though it wasn't. We're going to have movies like that.
Yeah.
We already have it. It's called Idiocracy.
Oh.
It came out before Trump even.
Premonition of the times.
I don't want to compare Chief Commander Camacho. Is that his name?
Yeah,
I don't want to give Terry Crews the insult of comparing him to Trump.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right, Emily. We will have stuff like that. And then to touch on what Wesley briefly mentioned, yeah, like, I think police will be represented differently as well. You know, like, you see ACAB all the time. And like, that's all I could think during this movie was, guess who has what's the budget of the NYPD? Isn't it like $7 billion? And they're the largest force on the planet, like third behind like our own military or something like that. So like, that's all I was thinking about during this movie was like, fuck the NYPD, all cops are bad, except for I'm going to suspend my disbelief of that for this movie specifically and cheer for John McClane. But at the same time, I'm just like, I know that there's a corrupt system going on, you know?
It's been hard to watch anything recently without having a new view of cops. I watched a documentary on Netflix called The 13th, where they talk heavily about how the reason we portray police in our mind and that it's acceptable that they do these excessive violence and use that force when it seems like it's not necessary and is unjustified is because how we've treated police in our media and how we've all grown up knowing that. I wrote the quote down when they went to the wizard's house where John McClane says to Kevin Smith, "You're going to calm down or I'm going to beat you to death in your own house."
Yeah.
Like, he's not in there with a warrant. He's not in there for any reason. Kevin Smith is saying, "Please get out of my house." And McClane's response is, "I'll beat you to death." Like, it's a different world to be looking back on media.
Well, and even
Right.
looking ahead, I know I read an article that Brooklyn Nine-Nine had to scrap like the first 4 or 5 scripts for their new season because of what's happening in the world right now. They wanted to better reflect that kind of tension that's going on right now. So they literally like threw out what they had to better show how cops are kind of viewed right now. Because I know in a couple years when we look back on Brooklyn Nine-Nine as a TV show, I think we're gonna look at it through the idea of, okay, police are defunded now, because I think that's the direction we're going. It's moving more towards a restorative justice system instead of the punitive one that we have now. So I just think it's really gonna paint a lot of the things that we've seen before, as Wesley said.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's going to be a few years. It was almost like, for me, it was like a light switch. And I had to confront a lot of my own views that I've seen in the media. I watched the entire last few seasons of New Girl. Winston becomes a cop, and, it's something that he's super proud of and his friends are super proud of. And, it's one of those things. It's like where, it's like a comedy. It's like supposed to be this comedy where we're cheering for these guys. And it's like almost overnight for me. It was like, well, these cops have been disenfranchising an entire race of people and profiling and doing everything against the book. And then, I guess it's not even against the book. It's like the book was like written wrong, I guess. But
it's easier to separate from reality in this movie. But especially when that line came out, like, it was in the back of my mind, and he is. And there's no question that that's how the status quo has been, and that's what we expect from cops.
I agree. I just end your guys' thoughts real quick with I saw a tweet that was pretty great about Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where they were like, wouldn't it be great if the next season they just became a post office and didn't address any of them being cops, and now they're just mail carriers. Anyway, we just left the Warlocks' home, and McClane and Farrell go to Woodlawn, a financial backup system of all the wealth of America, to stop Gabriel and rescue Lucy. Gabriel's team flees in their mobile unit and captures Farrell, who encrypted the financial data while McClane chased after them in a semi. Gabriel sends a fighter jet after McClane, I guess, an F-35 or something, but he narrowly escapes, locates the hackers, killing 2, but getting shot in the shoulder. Gabriel positions himself behind John McClane, putting the barrel of the gun into his shoulder wound to keep him alive, but McClane pulls the trigger himself, making the bullet go through his shoulder, killing Gabriel. Then Farrell saves Lucy by killing the very last henchman.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
I was really disappointed in the ending of this movie because it seems like each action sequence kind of built on the one before it to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then we're stuck with this like gun showdown. Like it just didn't feel like it was the same movie I had just spent 2 hours watching. Especially like, how do you go above a fighter jet?
I'll tell you how they did it. They spent the entire movie shooting at John McClane, only to, when they have a clear shot at John McClane, don't do it multiple times. Like, it just blew my mind. I think I wrote it like 4 or 5 different times. Like, why didn't they just shoot him? There's zero reason to have a hostage. There's zero reason to not shoot any of them other than maybe Justin Long, who has to fix whatever he's been magically hacking.
I think he wanted to kill his daughter in front of him. That was the whole reason why he didn't shoot him, or at least the Timothy Oliphant's reason.
I'm surprised he didn't kill her. Like, she was just being an annoyance and giving away some of their secrets. Like, oh, there's only 5 guys now. And like, She was just being a pain in his ass. I don't know. I really don't know why he didn't just kill her.
Right. And I want to know why that motherfucking F-35 just decided to launch missiles at a crowded highway and destroy a bridge and then fly under a highway.
Because they encourage people to abandon their cars. I don't know why. It was like way back in the beginning.
It flew under a bridge.
Why would a plane ever fly under something, especially a bridge that's collapsing over it, when it doesn't even have a shot on its target anymore? It's just sitting there waiting to be dropped something on.
I'm glad that fighter jet scene was in both versions of the movies, because I don't know if you guys knew this, but you guys watched a different version of this movie than I did.
Whoa.
They filmed this movie in both PG-13 and R at the same time, so they had dialogue filmed that they could put into an R-rated version and dialogue filmed for a PG-13 version. And Emily and I tried to watch this movie at the exact same time, and we didn't even realize we were watching two different movies until the very end, when Emily's like, that was PG-13. Like, I don't remember any F words. And the R-rated version has hundreds of F words. And I was like, I constantly was hearing them say fuck. I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow, I feel like I missed out.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother friggers.
That's what I heard. Yeah. It was like the blast of the gun covered it. And I was like, oh, I guess we're not going to say fuck.
But because they filmed it at the same time, the unrated version, or the rated R version, is actually 8 seconds shorter than the PG-13 version, because they were able to cut around it. They basically cut two different movies. So when I asked Emily, I'm like, are you watching the unrated or the PG-13 version? She's like, mine's 2 hours and 8 minutes. And I'm like, oh, mine is too. We must be watching the same thing. And then we didn't.
So, Ben, do you think it was better for having more curse bad words?
Yeah, I don't think this movie works as a PG-13 movie. I think.
Oh, it definitely doesn't. It's too ridiculous.
Yeah, you kind of need almost the F words to counterbalance the ridiculousness of the action sequences and what's happening on screen. Like, the F words are at least then used to kind of show you, like, this movie is very over the top. And by cutting out the F words, you're trying to show restraint in a movie that shows no restraint otherwise.
Right. They're trying to show it as more serious or something, or more, not relatable, but, I don't know. It's just really fucking dumb.
To make an analogy on what you're saying, Ben, it's almost like they had a recipe for a wonderful fatty dish, and they were trying to substitute like an ingredient where you get the dish and you're like, oh, this is the same thing.
No, that's actually a decent analogy.
Did you get really into?
It's like fake cheese.
I'm actually very surprised Matt made an analogy that actually fit with what we were talking about.
Good job, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
So one thing I found interesting in my research is that the Die Hard movies, other than the first Die Hard, do not start off as Die Hard scripts. Like, they take an action movie script, Hollywood does, and they read it and they say, yeah, this movie would be really good, but let's put John McClane in it.
Love it.
Like, for Die Hard with a Vengeance, that movie did not start off as a Die Hard movie. That movie was called Simon Says, and they adapted the script to include John McClane and changed the villain to someone that would relate to John McClane. Originally, the idea for Die Hard with a Vengeance was the script that they ended up using for Speed 2 Cruise Control, which was John McClane on a cruise ship.
During Christmas, probably.
Probably during Christmas. And then this one, again, was not meant to be a Die Hard movie, but they saw the script and they're like, we can adapt this into a Die Hard movie.
I think it honestly is better as a Die Hard movie. I'm trying to imagine it without John McClane, and I'm just thinking, God, it'd be so stupid. Because at least with John McClane, you know it's going to be over the top ridiculous, him trying to get through everything.
Correct. And by making it a Die Hard movie, you're able to skip a lot of the character development. Like, people are coming into this movie with already the relationship with John McClane. They know who he is. They know what he's about. A lot of world building would have to happen in this movie if you didn't know who John McClane was.
You just started off with, yeah, he was a real John McClane type, and then just go from there.
Right. Or you just have like Gerard Butler chopping wood in like the backwoods cabin, and then you're just like, this guy's seen some shit, But yeah, I'll tell you, the part of the Act 3 that I hated was them killing all of the analysts and hackers as they fled to the mobile unit. And then the main computer guy shuts his computer. He's like, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And he just like carries his computer out with him. and it had this weird cut where they just shoot everyone in the face.
I think my least favorite part was when parkour terrorist was in the really icy room and he was like jumping off the walls, and it's like, no, that you would be slipping all over the fucking place.
Right, and they treat it like he's been practice training here for years. Like the way he just like saw the gun hanging under like a walkway, so he just like drops down like pencil style, grabs onto a thing and has the gun and shoots. Like it looked cool, but it was and then we're talking about a movie that has a hover plane and a car crashing a helicopter. That was one of the most unrealistic parts of this movie for me.
The entire pace of this movie just feels off to me, because even the scenes where it's just Justin Long and John McClane talking, they use such fast cuts back and forth that don't have, like, they cut it like an action scene when there are two people just sitting in the car talking, and it doesn't provide like the ability to like calm yourself before the next action sequence.
Well, that's a really good point about editing, Ben.
Okay, so does anyone have any final thoughts about this before we get into our reviews?
I'm fine with my review speaking for me.
Okay. All right, well, I'll kick us off then. So this movie is pure destruction, action sequences stacked on top of each other. The bad guys in this movie are tough. You can crash into them with a car and blow them up with a helicopter and they still won't die. If you can get past the fact that Bruce Willis plays a fascist pig NYPD cop and that computers are magic, you will love this movie. I give this movie just a yippee-ki out of a possible yippee-ki-yay motherfucker.
Oh, damn.
Oh, wow. So what percentage is that?
That's, I mean, I guess I'm going to go with the
like a
syllables.
3 or 4?
So,
yeah.
The syllables?
Yeah. Yippee-ki, that's 3.
So 2 out of 5?
8?
It's
Yippee-ki would be 3 out of
motherfucker. Yeah, out of 8. So 3 out of 8.
3 out of 8, yeah.
Like 30-ish%.
Huh.
My review is huge action sequences with a focus on practical effects are the easiest way for an action movie to win me over. But when the movie is assembled so poorly so as to not provide the quieter moments space to breathe and characters to get fleshed out, I lose interest quickly because I have no reason to get invested. With a better editor and more time to build character, instead of relying on previously built character and development from earlier in the series, this could have been a great movie. But instead, the motherfuckers outweigh the yippee-ki-yays 2-1.
No, not in our version.
I said, it's an action movie that is just that. It's filled with action. Plot feels far-fetched and bigger than it should be for McClane to be running around the East Coast states over the 4th of July. Nothing about the acting is memorable, with the exception of maybe McClane and McClane Jr., aka Lucy. The explosions are cool, but not once do I feel like there are any real stakes, even though there are some really fun and ludicrous close calls. I just want more Alan Rickman.
Oh.
So, 3 out of 5 receding John McClane hairlines, because this is the first time we've seen him bald in Die Hard. I looked that up.
Nice.
Wow.
Which gives more weight to the, it's weird to hear that kind of talk coming out of someone with hair. I never had to check how long I was into this movie because I didn't really have to think about it and really just kind of zoned out while Bruce Willis slowly gets more dirty and bloody. Oliphant was cool, but we really need more foreign villains. So I'm giving this movie 4.0, just like in the opening credits. This is Die Hard 4.0, out of 5 overprotective dads who mean well.
Wesley, let me ask you something. You said more foreign villains. I feel like all we ever get is foreign villains, and they're usually Eastern European Russians. Like, what do you mean by more foreign villains?
It's a Die Hard movie, and I just wanted a foreign villain. Like Emily said, I miss Alan Rickman. And was it Jeremy Irons in 3?
It was.
Like, I just enjoy, and it seemed like multiple people in his crew were foreign. Like I think I caught like a Spanish accent or a Mexican accent.
It was Italian.
French.
It was Italian.
I caught an Italian accent, and I thought like a French accent. So like they had a diverse crew.
Wes not worldly.
I'm not good with language. It wasn't colors, guys.
You're right. Words are not colors.
Words are not colors. All right, so before we get into our battle, I believe Ben has written down some random character names that Emily and Matt are going to get to pick from.
Ooh, guest moderator.
Yeah, so for question 1, you'll need to pick from a list of 6 movie characters that I generated. So Wesley, why don't you roll to see who goes first?
Me. Ooh.
Oh, who do you pick?
Who wants it more?
I think Matt needs it more.
Just trying to get on the board, baby.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it to Matt.
Okay. So, Matt, your choices of movie characters are Regina George, Wednesday Addams, Medea, Winnie the Pooh, Mr. Miyagi, or E.T.
I'm going to go with Medea.
Okay.
Tyler Perry's.
Is it?
That's right.
Is it
Tyler
Medea
Perry's
from
Medea.
any specific movie?
Nope, it's just Medea the character. Emily.
Wednesday Addams.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Also perfect.
Okay, it is time to battle free or twit hard. I will pose 5 rounds of questions to our expert hackers. Let them try to infiltrate my good spot this week. And after, I will reinstate their 401ks and supplement them with additional points. The winner of each round will get 1 point, and the loser gets 0. I will be more easily persuaded by the more creative and descriptive answers. After our battles, John McClane emerges from the elevator shaft. They will assign the loser an expedient bullet to the head in the form of a champion-assigned punishment. Twits, are you ready?
Let's go.
So ready, but when you said twit hard, I was like, that sounds sexual.
Why can't it be?
This is the 1 week where I'm not being sexual.
This is professional.
This is professional, Ben.
And I appreciate the good spot.
I knew you would. Every time I hear the word good now, I think good, and it immediately makes me chuckle. Okay, so question 1. The Die Hard franchise is known for over-the-top action sequences that tend to cause a lot of collateral damage. So, for this randomly assigned question, you must create an action sequence for the movie character you chose as if they were in a Die Hard-esque movie. And make sure to include a one-liner the character says after doing something cool. We will start with Matt, who chose Medea.
The movie I made was Medea Goes to War. A fun movie about basic training, being horny in basic training, and eventually getting shipped off to World War III and ultimately saving us from Vladimir Putin. So my action sequence would take place in an AC-130 with our brave soldiers, plus Medea, getting ready to parachute out over some base in Russia. It's scary, and Medea comforts us with some humor. But all of a sudden, it's shot out of the sky, and everyone has to parachute. And Medea lands away from the group behind the drop zone. 2 henchmen are on their patrol, and Medea takes them out swiftly from behind with a knife and raises her hand to her mouth, making a shh motion. After all, this is a Medea movie. And then she sneaks further down the path to a bunker where they're all shooting at some of her friends. And this is where she springs into action, leaving her stealth, going into full dually handgun mode, eliminating 10 henchmen before running out of bullets. Her friends have now been saved, but she's in trouble because the last officer in the bunker is staring down her with a gun, and out of nowhere, one of her friends yells, "Boogie down!" And Medea hits the floor with the splits, and he kills him with a well-placed shot.
Awesome.
And my quote that I would use would be like, "I've heard of boudin balls, but not Putan balls."
What are boudin balls?
You guys haven't had boudin balls?
No.
It's the
Are
Southern
we talking to
thing.
Medea right now?
No. Boudin, like, okay, this must be because I'm getting married to Shelby soon, but it's a Southern little fried ball of I don't really know what it is. She makes me try it every
dough?
time, but no, it's like savory. What are boudin balls made of? They're Cajun sausage, ground pork, rice, and seasoning.
That sounds good. In your mind, does boudin rhyme with Putin?
It's the way it's said, obviously.
Oh, sure.
He did say Putan.
He did.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Emily, you've got Wednesday Addams.
Wednesday Addams is all grown up now, but her signature look is still present. Her long black braids trail past her waist. She is now a trained assassin working for Addams Assassins, her family's assassin guild. One evening, she walks into a seemingly abandoned mall dressed in all black, a close-up on her braids swinging back and forth. As she fearlessly walks in, a rain of gunfire shoots down from her above, and then it begins. We watch as Wednesday swiftly kicks and punches out the 2 henchmen that shoot at her from the first floor, her arm bleeding from the bullets above, but her hard glare shows that it doesn't bother her. Shouts and more gunfire is heard and shown as more henchmen come to dispose of the threat. Wednesday jumps up to the handrail of the escalator. Debris falls down, almost crushing her, and she flips out of the way to land on a chandelier hanging from the ceiling. She swings back and forth and jumps and crushes her next opponent with a kick to his face, breaking his nose and gushing blood. With a series of methodical strikes similar to judo, which she is trained in, she disarms a wave of men, their broken bodies littered along the floor, her braids swinging as she walks to her target. Reaching her mark, the man quivers with a lone handgun she easily knocks away. She reaches into her pocket and takes out her pet spider, Homer, and lets it bite into the man's neck. Her target slowly dies as the venom spreads. As she smiles for the first time, she strokes her pet lovingly and says, "No more, my sweet. I don't want to spoil your appetite."
You got two good movies there.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I really appreciated that you both provided a little backstory for why our characters were in the situation that they were. It really helped paint a good word picture of what the action sequence that was going to follow. Matt, yours was very much in the military vein, but you had Medea's humor kind of cued into that, and I like the shh from the Medea. That's very on point. Or Boogie Down, and then she does the splits. I feel like I've seen that in a Medea movie before. Emily, you had a lot of good hand-to-hand combat descriptions. I love the use of Homer, her spider, and then the line, "I don't want to spoil your appetite." That is actually what is going to give you this point, because I feel it was more in character than the Medea one.
You
it
just
also
gotta try some
felt
Buddha and balls.
more intentional.
No, that's actually something really good.
It didn't just feel like it was a tacked on quote at the end. It felt like it was part of the actual scene.
That's why I needed a couple extra seconds. I was like, I have a thing. I just need to word it right.
I also like that you said she's trained in judo, where I know the Medea gag is kind of why is she there, but like the fact that you called out that Wednesday is trained in judo, I like that more.
And the tie-in to the Addams Assassins, that like there's a group that they've started.
Yeah.
Really cool idea. But you both did great job. Those aren't easy questions to answer. So
yeah, that was so fucking funny. You should make a movie.
Honestly, I was proud of myself when I came up with Medea Goes to War. And I was like, that's so good. And then I was like, what am I talking about?
The best part was he typed it and then looked up at his camera to see if Wesley or I saw it, because he was looking for validation in what he just wrote.
Let me take a swig of this.
Oh, man.
I'm gonna do a shot with you.
Hey.
Question 2. This movie was shot in both a PG-13 version and an R-rated version, but John McClane, a self-proclaimed family man, has yet to appear in a movie meant to be seen by the whole family. So, I want you to insert John McClane into any PG or G-rated movie and tell us how his appearance in the movie changes that story. We're going to start with Emily.
I'm so excited. All right. We hear the clanks of something moving through the vents, getting closer and closer. After 3 echoing bangs, something shoots out of the wall and tumbles into a heap. Woody and Buzz peer out of the backpack and see a very grizzled man in a blood-painted white tank top aiming his gun back at the opening. He turns around slowly, cocking his gun on his shoulder, revealing pink rainbow stickers and kitty cats all over him. John McClane rips off a sticker covering his eye. "Come out to the tea party. We'll get together, have a few laughs." Why, yes, this is a John McClane action figure in Toy Story. Ever since Sid's uncle gave him a bunch of old action figures from the early 90s, one of them, John McClane, has been trying to escape the horror that is Sid's house by mapping out the vents. He greets the new toys by a "welcome to the party, pal." After Buzz is captured by Sid, McClane would help Woody develop a plan for the rescue of Buzz with the rest of the mutant toys. As Woody leaves with Buzz, an emotional McClane looks at the pair and whispers, "Yippee-ki-yay, cowboy," as a tear rolls down his cheek. I would really like for John McClane to somehow burst out of the vents of Andy's new home in the end credit scene that Pixar always does, you know, and say something like, "Now I know what a TV dinner feels like," not explaining at all how he managed to get through Sid's vents to Andy's vents. As for law enforcement in this movie, obviously Woody would award McClane as the deputy to his sheriff to thank him for his service. I think John McClane as an action figure in Toy Story would be amazing.
Very good. Very interesting idea. Matt, let's hear yours.
So I chose Home Alone 2, and here's why. It's actually a bad movie on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a 33. And this review from the Los Angeles Times sums up my thoughts on it perfectly. Whatever was unforced and funny in the first film became exaggerated here. Whatever was slightly sentimental was laid on with Troll. The result, with some exception, plays like an over-the-top, elaborate parody of the first film, reminding us why we enjoyed it without being able to duplicate its appeal. So we need to add something to Home Alone 2 to give it this life and depth. Enter in John McClane of the NYPD. It makes sense considering it's set in New York, and it would be a fun play on Die Hard 1 and 2 being set during Christmas Eve, as this movie also takes place during Christmas Eve. In Home Alone 2, the police are side notes. You know, cop number 1, Detective Bennett. They have no part of the story, and this is where we can infuse new life into this film. It would be a B story to Kevin's shenanigans at this hotel. The B story being working with his mother, Kate McAllister, to find his son. You know, that would actually have a decent payoff when they go to catch the wet bandits robbing the actual toy store. So John McClane reluctantly working with the McAllister family to track down Kevin and find the bad guys, where Kevin signaled the police. It would lead to this larger payoff, and it would show the softer side of John McClane and his actual detective work. And it wouldn't be such a gunfighting John McClane as much as it's a form-filling out John McClane.
Oh, it's like super wholesome. That's really cute.
Right. I mean, there's a different side of police, and this would be the behind the scenes.
It's interesting you say that after our whole conversation from before about police brutality.
I know. You have to like forget a lot of the stuff I said for a lot of my answers.
Just go ahead and disregard what you already know.
Question 3. John is a bit of an overprotective father, showing up on his daughter's date to harass her boyfriend right in front of her. It's fine being an overprotective dad, but you have to be a little more coy than a face-to-face confrontation in front of your child. So, leave a note on the windshield of Lucy's new love interest from the perspective of John McClane. Matt, let's hear your note first.
So this note would obviously be left on the back of a parking ticket. I know you, and I've been watching you. Yes, I've seen you dating my daughter, Lucy, and if you weren't aware, I'm a cop. Yeah, you're dating a cop's daughter. Just so you know, if you ever hurt my little girl, let's just say this. I'll be bringing you in for some serious questioning. I had some of the boys down at the station pull the security footage from your date, and let's just say I won't be a gentleman with you if you're not going to be a gentleman with my little girl. Every day at work, I carry a gun, which I hate to use because I hate paperwork. And this note is some serious paperwork, and it kind of feels like firing my gun. So don't make me have to give you an attitude check again, you little punk. Give my daughter some flowers, have her home by 9 o'clock. And if you ever treat her badly again, you've got a one-way ticket to Rikers Island, where I'll be personally giving you a cavity search and locking you up for as long as I legally can. 24 hours. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. P.S. Call the cops about this note and see who shows up. Take your statement.
Awesome.
Wow.
Emily, let's hear your note.
God, I wish I would have thought of parking ticket. This is going to be really funny, you guys. This is so dumb. All right. So John McClane isn't known for his long-winded responses to assholes. He's known for his direct one-liners and his foul mouth. So even his veiled threats wouldn't be that veiled. They would be short, direct, and to the point. So his note on the windshield would be stationary from the NYPD. Scrawled quickly with Sharpie. Hey, jerk off. No means fucking no. Keep your hands away from my daughter's breasts, or we're gonna have plenty of time to get to know each other when I come visit you in prison. Hugs and kisses, John McClane.
Question 4. McClane is a badass daddy and finds a way to take down any opponent that is thrown at him. But is he the most badass daddy? For this debate-style question, tell me, which movie dad would most easily win in a fight with John McClane? And for this question, I'll even let you choose the setting for that fight. So, Emily.
John McClane's challenger is movie dad David Dunn from Unbreakable. Now, why choose David Dunn to fight off McClane? David Dunn is a superhuman, able to survive traumas and shocks that would have killed a normal person, and not because of pure luck. He possesses the super strength to rip off car doors, bench press 500 pounds. The world record is 793 pounds. Break down steel doors, bend metal bars, and hurl a grown man several feet with a tremendous force. John McClane, on the other hand, is just a normal human with a bit of cop training that has some of the best dumb luck out there. However, he is still a mushy human with an average man's strength, bones that can be easily broken, although not as easily broken as the Glass Man, and skin that can easily be pierced by things like, I don't know, glass. So I envision...
Oh boy.
That was on a couple levels. That was good.
I envision a WrestleMania boxing setup, each with their own ridiculous theme music and entrances. They would be trapped together in a ring away from all water, where McClane wouldn't be able to use any cheap tricks such as hiding in vents, taping guns to his back, or sneaking up on David Dunn. He wouldn't be able to run away. It would just be superhuman Bruce Willis knocking out his human counterpart with a few cut punches.
A few what kind of punches?
Cut punches.
Cut punches.
Matt, let's hear who you have.
I chose somebody a little bit different. I chose Armageddon's Harry Stamper, played by Bruce Willis. Harry Stamper is a gritty roughneck, but he's a genius oil driller. He's a man who's known to never miss his mark, a man chosen by NASA to drill a hole on an asteroid headed for Earth. He heads up a ragtag team of expert drillers who are all devoted and extremely loyal to him. Stamper has backup if he needs it. John McClane works alone. When Stamper says he'll make his mark, we know it happens. So my confrontation between Harry Stamper and John McClane would take place on an oil rig out at deep sea, a place that John McClane would know nothing about and a place that David Dunn would be terrified of. Now, to just trash David Dunn a little bit from Unbreakable, John McClane, he's known for being able to take a punch. So super strength is just going to reinforce how great John McClane is and how bloody he gets and still carry on how cunning he is. I mean, he's not going to be beaten by a guy that could be drowned by somebody, okay? And then furthermore, Dunn's special ability, when he touches people, he gets a premonition. He would just get confused because he would see a version of himself. You know, he'd see another Bruce Willis, and he would get all confused. And like John McClane has never done anything bad. So,
are you saying he wouldn't fight him or something?
No, I'm just saying David Dunn's superpower, being able to touch people and tell the bad things and crimes they've done, he would just touch Bruce Willis and be like, oh, I was masturbating once. And he would be like, was that me or him? Or
Okay. Understandable.
Okay, let's hear your counter, Emily.
Okay. First off, it's a dumb argument to say that David Dunn would be confused by touching McClane because he's a good person and he's done good things. It's so dumb. Both of these characters are heroes in their movies and obviously wouldn't fight each other except for a ridiculous scenario like WrestleMania. So that was weird. And also, yes, David Dunn is afraid of water, but mine is specifically not in water. So I don't know why you chose that as like a defense for you or a counter for you. Now, of all the Bruce Willis dad characters you chose an untrained fighter that knows about drilling holes in rock, and that's it. You could have chosen the vigilante Death Wish Dad Willis, the motherfucking android fighting surrogate Dad Willis, or even a trained assassin Lucky Number 11 adopted Dad Willis. But no, you fucking chose the least athletic and weapon trained Dad Willis out there. Even with the shotgun he used to threaten Ben Affleck, this is no easy match against John McClane, who you can assume is somewhat trained in firing guns and has experience from all the Die Hard movies. Like, David Dunn is way more experienced than your Bruce Willis.
My Bruce Willis is better than your Bruce Willis.
Well, Matt, you get a defense. Let's hear it.
Just to go back, you know, if the overseer touches John McClane, he's going to see a Bruce Willis. So that's where I was getting at. He would be confused. He'd be like, is that me or is that him? So that's all I'm saying there. And You know, I just want to go ahead and say David Dunn's weakness is water. So I don't think John McClane is going to lose to a guy that could take too many sleeping pills and die in a bathtub versus Harry Stamper's weakness, which is nuclear bombs, which I think we both know who would put up the real fight against John McClane, the man who never misses his mark.
Hey. So here comes the self-identified everyone's favorite question, despite receiving any real feedback on whether the listeners actually enjoy this question.
Fourth wall.
Please reach out to us on social media and give us any feedback, good or bad. We are starving for it. Quick plug. I Drink Your Podcast at gmail.com. I Drink Your Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Talk to us.
Smoke signals.
We are so lonely.
So desperately lonely.
Yeah. But anyway, question 5, pitch a reboot, prequel, sequel for Live Free or Die Hard. And in addition to that, describe the circumstance for how a character in your movie will use the phrase, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. We're going to start with Matt.
So I chose a spin-off sequel that would be a drama, not an action, that wouldn't feature any John McClane at all. This movie would simply live in the Die Hard universe. It's not a Die Hard film. In every single action movie where they destroy the city to save the day and stop the bad guy, there's never any consideration to how much damage is actually happening. How many billions of dollars in aid will they need? And how much overtime will need to get approved to get the city back to normal? Super. The very next day, we see the brave men and women tasked with cleaning up after this mess. The heroes that have to rebuild the roads, tunnels, and bridges. The undertakers and medics that need to care for the wounded, sick, and dead. The people tasked with rebuilding the infrastructure that's been ripped apart by this over-the-top violent movie. So my main protagonist would be the mayor of New York City, and some of my auxiliary characters would be a couple of firefighters, a city engineer, there would be an architect, and a few janitors in there for comic relief. I mean, what a freaking mess! Now, the antagonist of this movie would be the situation. They need to fight for aid and fight for every single survivor in this movie, and there would be some real obstacles in the way. Bureaucratic red tape, and getting the materials there logistically in to fix the city. So my movie would be all about the mayor landing deals to fix the city and return New York City to its glory. And it would end with him giving a super impassioned speech in Congress to land federal aid and change the minds of his peers and the public. And he would end his speech with, yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers. And then the halls of Congress would erupt with applause. Wow. My movie would be super patriotic, and the name of my movie would be We Choose to Live Free. And in parentheses, not Die Hard.
Is it Bill de Blasio, baby?
No.
Oh, no. He's not the mayor? Okay.
No, it's got to be somebody likable.
I also want to point out that Matt's entire reboot was done with him waving his bottle of whiskey in his hand. It was super funny. Okay.
That reminds me, that was like the first baby that was on this podcast. Like, Matt, you've been really good. Way to go.
I'm pretty sure I hit it already earlier.
I don't know if you did.
Flew it under the radar, I think.
Okay, Emily, let's hear your reboot prequel sequel.
All right, mine's going to be pretty short. So, John McClane has been in the wrong place at the wrong time over and over again and has brutally fought tooth and nail to defeat bank robbers, the industrial military complex, a dead bastard's terrorist brother, hackers, and all of Russia. He is a badass motherfucker that is finally looking forward to his retirement from the New York PD. Little does he know he will be facing the toughest battle of his life. For his life. This time, John McClane will fight for himself. Coming to you this summer, Died Hard. John McClane in his final fight against cancer.
I want to know how it ends.
Crying. Wow, it's a sad movie. Two will meet, only one will die hard. Literally rolling into his final chemotherapy appointment. He looks to his children, nods, shows a brave face, and quietly says as he goes through the swinging doors, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Will he defeat this last fight tooth and nail like the others or perish under the growing tumors in his brain. Only you will find out in Died Hard.
The title gives it away, right?
Well, you don't know. Cancer might die.
No, you're
John
right.
McClane might die.
It could be a Shyamalan joint with a twist.
One of them's gonna die.
Okay, that was real tough because there was a lot of really great answers in our debate today. So just to recap, number 1, Matt had Medea, and he did Medea Goes to War for our question 1, which was create an action sequence for a movie character you chose in the Die Hard style. Emily had Wednesday Addams, and we ended up giving Emily that first point. So question 2. Insert John McClane into a GPG movie and tell us how his appearance in the movie changes the story. Emily decided to input John McClane into Toy Story, and Matt decided to put John McClane into Home Alone 2. First of all, I think both movies could be improved by adding John McClane. John McClane in Toy Story felt like it was real. So real that I actually had to look up to see if Pixar did that in 3 or 4, just as like a quick tag. That's absolutely something Pixar would do, and I loved it. I love all the quotes that you had. It felt very John McClane character.
Come out to the tea party.
Just numbed down to a GPG level. Matt, you had your B story become John McClane helping find Kevin. If I'm remembering correctly, the McAllisters weren't in New York, so I was a little confused as to how that would happen, him working with the mom to find Kevin.
Oh, I think they fly back and stay in a hotel.
In New York, though? Because how do they know he's in New York?
The credit card. They're tracking the credit card, so they see that it's spent in New York. Just don't worry about it.
Okay. Well, either way, I thought that if I'm going to a Home Alone movie, I don't want to see a B story about the cops. I want to see Kevin do more traps and really get the bandits caught himself. So because I felt it distracted too much from the main story, whereas Emily really integrated hers, I'm going to give that point to Emily.
Seeing an animated John McClane crawl out of a vent, that sounds so fun.
Question 3. Leave a note on the windshield of Lucy's love interest from the perspective of John McClane. You both had some really funny lines in your note. Matt, I loved the I carry a gun, which I hate to use because I hate paperwork, and this is paperwork. It feels like I'm firing my gun. That's so well written. And it truly gets to the heart of how I feel John McClane would actually talk.
Right. And then the wrap up of call the cops and see who shows up.
Yes.
That was so funny.
That's a great veiled threat right there. Like, that's perfect. Emily, I loved your hugs and kisses tag.
I like the visual of it being scribbled up with a Sharpie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just the most dumb cop thing. They're just like, oh, write this down real quick.
In the end, though, I think, Emily, you just didn't give me enough John McClane to really take that one. You spent a half your talk kind of setting the preface for the note instead of the note itself. And because of that, I'm going to give the point to Matt.
If I had not set it up and just done the note, though, it wouldn't have been as good.
Yeah,
that's correct.
The message was strong. Like, there was more message.
Okay.
There was... I mean, yeah.
I think if you would have tied into your notes some of the stuff you talked about in your preface, though, like him telling this guy, like, I've got a foul fucking mouth, him kind of relaying his character to the boyfriend, I think you could have added a lot of veiled threats into the note itself instead of just prefacing it with that. Question 4, which movie dad would most easily win in a fight with John McClane? And I will even let you choose the setting. You both did well on this one. You both obviously picked Bruce Willis characters. This was, in my opinion, the closest one and the hardest one for me to decide. Emily, you talked about how he can bench press 500 pounds and was superhuman, but then you immediately undercut it by saying that the world record is 793 pounds, which means that's not superhuman to bench 500 pounds. So you kind of lost me a little bit there. I liked that you said it as far away from water as you possibly could. I think knowing David Dunn's weakness is water, that was a really smart move. Matt, you had Harry Stamper. You talked about how he had people behind him that were loyal to him, but then your idea didn't really expound on how those people would help him. I loved setting it on an oil rig because I do think that home field advantage would help Stamper because he would know the places to hide and jump out of to kind of take down McClane. Emily gave Matt what I feel would have been a knockout punch, where Emily said, "Are you saying that David Dunn wouldn't fight McClane?" And Matt, had you said yes, I think you could have taken her down with just one comment, because I do think that David Dunn, after seeing John McClane is a good guy, would refuse to fight him. So I was real disappointed that you didn't take that opportunity and run with it.
For shame.
What?
And I also loved, again, the double meaning of the glass joke. Made me laugh a lot. And then Matt made a really good point for me, where strength isn't necessarily a vulnerability of McClane's. And I think with undercutting the fact that he's not actually superhuman, he's just kind of strong. That for me was a good point.
I am going to give the point for this one to Emily, and it is a close one. Question 5. Pitch a reboot, prequel, sequel for Live Free or Die Hard and include the phrase yippee-ki-yay motherfucker. Matt, you had the spin-off sequel that was a drama about the cleanup of the city after the events of Live Free or Die Hard. Your focus was the main character as the mayor of New York City, and your antagonist was the situation. Emily, you had a sequel where John McClane is battling cancer, his toughest battle of all. This one really came down to me of which one best used yippee-ki-yay motherfucker. And in the end, Matt, your use didn't really make sense, because why would the mayor say it when he's talking about destruction that was caused by the guy who originally said yippee-ki-yay motherfucker? Why would he say it to Congress? Why would Congress cheer after it? It was just a lot of, I had a lot of questions that didn't get answered. Whereas Emily's yippee-ki-yay motherfucker was very nuanced. It was in character. It fit the story. And in the end, I do think Emily's movie would be something a little more interesting to watch, a battle with cancer, rather than just a mass cleanup where none of the characters are really something you can identify with. So that last one I'm giving to Emily for a victory, 4-1, Emily defeating Matt. Well done, Emily.
Thanks.
Yay, Emily.
Thank you.
Boo, Matt.
Boo.
So Emily, what is the punishment that Matt has to do?
Well, as we know, Matt hates live tweeting, so I have an option for you to do something else. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so I'm assuming you've seen Arrested Development and Tobias Funke's audition for a fire sale. I want you to reenact Tobias Funke's audition for a fire sale.
Got it.
Fun.
Will do. Congrats on a hard-fought victory.
Just be thankful Ben didn't win this one 5-0 as well.
It was close. I almost did.
As the judge, you never know.
Yeah. So Emily winning this week means that she will face off against me next week in our Battle of Twits Championship, where we will also be watching the movie Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Now, is this the Squeakquel?
No, this is not the Squeakquel or Chipwrecked or Road Chip.
What?
This is just Alvin. There's 4 of them.
Oh my God. Why are there so many?
Because they're so good, and we're going to find out why.
Yep. My daughter freaking loves these movies, so I'm going to definitely watch it with her sometime this week.
Oh, I thought you were implying so everyone should love it.
No, she's got terrible taste sometimes.
Oh, sure. Okay. This is a cash grab for Tobias Funke, right?
It is. Tobias Funke is in Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah.
David Cross is the antagonist. Yeah.
Perfect.
Great. So this is gonna be perfect.
But thank you for listening. Please rate us, review us, tell your friends, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
I chose Die Hard. Bye.